Hey, this is Matthew, and welcome to Nerd News Today. And today we've got a real exciting PVC figure diorama statue review for you to check out. Today we're looking at the Predator. And if you guys watched our massive unboxing from a few months ago, where we literally opened up the boxes that all of these diamond-like statues were stored in, you would have seen my reaction to when I saw this Predator. And man, oh man, I have waited so long to actually open this. The reason why it took a little bit longer than a lot of other statues is because, the whole COVID-19 thing happened. And in between that time, we were deciding how we're going to break down the statue reviews, what we were going to do together with myself and Andrea or Rich. And ultimately, the decision was made for me to do a lot of these statue reviews as mostly solo ones. So yeah, now it's finally come to time where I can do the Predator, and oh man, I cannot wait to get him out of the box. But first things first, we do have to talk about that box, and this packaging here is actually really good. This is really nicely designed packaging. I don't know if this is like the aesthetic that they're now forced to do with all the Predator merchandise. So over here on the left side, we have the Predator logo going right down the side of the packaging with those classic 3 dots, the Predator targeting symbol up there. And then on this side here, we've got some forest looking setting, which also kind of looks to me more like it's the Predator's infrared vision. Not so much it is as a jungle, but it's more the Predator's infrared that we're coming through here. And then again, just down here, this nice little cut space. It just looks like really nice kind of futuristic design. And it feels like something that the Predator would actually use or have. So as we mentioned here, the front of the box has this big window display to see the front, whereas each side has another window to give you a big glimpse into what's going on there. And man, as you guys can see, this is a pretty big packaging here we're looking at. As a point of reference, let's take a look and see just how big this box is. It's about just about a foot tall, in fact. So it's a pretty big piece. We've looked at some other pieces recently that have been a little bit smaller, where the sizes have varied. And I've been really complimenting them on the fact that these pieces are a little bit smaller, but with a character like the Predator, I want it to be big. I want it to be menacing, and we're off to a good start with that. Let's take a look now at the back of the box real quick also, which has a pretty good bio about who the Predator is. We got a picture again of the pre-production prototype of the Predator statue here. But yeah, we've got this nice description of what's going on, and it lets us know that in particular, this figure is meant to be from the first Predator movie because it mentions Dutch, aka Arnold Schwarzenegger. And yes, it also just straight up tells us here that it is meant to be from the 1987 Predator movie. This piece was designed by Caesar and sculpted by Alderton. Those are 2 of our faves at Diamond Select, so I have very high hopes for this piece. So I think there's nothing else to really say about this guy in the box. It's time to cut the Predator loose and take a look at him from all angles. And here's our Predator now out of the packaging, and it's a very impressive looking piece, just as I was hoping for it to be. And normally we would talk about likenesses first with these reviews, but there is no likeness today because this Predator here is wearing a helmet. He's got his mask on, and yeah, I believe there actually is an unmasked variant. I think it might be the Summer Con exclusive this year. I'm not quite sure. I do remember seeing a version of this without the mask on, so it is coming, but it is a variant. So in terms of the accuracy of the mask, I think it's pretty close. I think like probably the biggest difference is that it's a little too smooth, I'd say, on the mask. If you touch it, you can actually feel that there is like this nice little part that comes down on the sides of the cheeks. But I think in the movie that those parts in particular are actually much deeper cut. They're a little more dramatic looking. Here, it doesn't quite feel the way it should, or doesn't quite look the way it does in the movie, or at least how I remember it looking in the movie. And we should add that at this point in the Predator series, the masks weren't really that intricate either. But I feel like there's just 1 or 2 little minor things that make it not quite as 100% screen accurate, but I think it's close enough that I'm okay with how it looks. But as for the rest of the body and all the other things on it, I think those are totally screen accurate if that's the thing that really matters to you. Whether we're talking about the chest armor, the shoulder armor, or on that note, the shoulder cannon, the gauntlets that he has, the leg armor, the boots, especially this sharp pointy little bit here. I mean, yeah, I think they've really gotten the accuracy down of all those pieces. And I think they just look really, really good together, There's a lot of really good little small details, especially on this piece, when we're talking about that armor. And I think the gauntlets are where it really, really shines. The gauntlets and also the shoulder cannon, I'll say too, those just look really, really nice. It's no wonder to see why the Predator is such a toyetic kind of character, why he's gotten so many incarnations of himself in different media forms and different sizes and scales of action figures. And in this video here, we're talking about a $50 statue. And for a $50 piece, I mean, there's some really good detail on this guy here. I really can't ask for much more detail with this piece. I mean, from every angle, there's just so much to look at, so much to talk about. And I guarantee you there's probably some fans out there who are way more hardcore, way more into the Predator than I am. And they're gonna go looking through this thing piece by piece, looking for little nitpicks and inaccuracies. But for my money here, I'm really happy with this, and I'm very happy with how good it looks. Something else that I really enjoy about this piece too is his little bandolier of skulls. And why I like that is because it's in fact a separate piece. You can see here that I'm pulling on it. And the skulls actually do kind of move a little bit here. You can move them around. I think one of them down here, in fact, is a little bit looser than the others. So I really appreciate that part as well. You can see some of the trophies across his chest. He's got that interesting Predator fishnet look that, you know, I've always found it odd that they have fishnet in space, but hey, who am I to judge? There's just a lot of little bits to sculpt on a Predator, and especially with a thing like fishnet too, which is, I imagine, a pretty big pain in the butt for sculptors out there. You know, I think they really got a lot of great detail in this Predator piece, and that makes it a standout just for that alone. Even the base, which is really just basically a jungle kind of log with some vines on it. It's a very, again, simple looking base, but it's really nicely sculpted. There's a lot of good little grass details, logs, rocks. There's a tree stump that the Predator's standing on. A lot of good details and a lot of different textures. And that's also another big thing you can talk about with this Predator statue, is the different types of textures that are on him, because he's got a ton. I mean, we've got the lovely little intricate details on the gauntlets and some of the armor, the feel of the fishnet on his body. We've got the skulls. There's, of course, all the stuff here in the base. There's a lot of really nice parts about this piece, texturally speaking. And it's those differences and contrasts in the texture that also make it very attractive to a viewer. I also really like the pose, of course. We can't talk about this and ignore the pose here. He's basically stalking somebody on his stump right there. He may have just come out of being invisible, or he may just be like, hey, what's up? And he's gonna stab you in the face. I don't know, but it's a really good looking pose. It's a very action-y pose without it being like him leaping into battle. You know, it's a good warrior stance. I think that's what I like about it, is it's kind of neutral in that regard. It's just a good warrior stance, but he's ready for action, and I think that's going to appeal to a lot of collectors. And there's good energy and movement in it as well. You know, we didn't really talk a ton about his hair yet even, or these strands that are up here, but there's some good motion in that as well. You know, there's some good energy in this part, and that translates across through the entire body and with the entire pose. So we do lose, however, a few points for paint, but nothing drastic. You know, this, I have to say, is probably one of the more complicated paint jobs we've seen in a diamond PVC statue. That's mainly from those fishnets, because those had to be painted, and that must have been a big pain in the ass to paint. You could see that on his body, at least the exposed parts of his flesh. There's like a lot of different airbrush detail that goes into that, and that again kind of resembles how it was in the movie. I imagine a lot of that texture was in fact airbrushed onto that rubber suit. So the only way to achieve that effect on this figure is probably do something similar. And whereas, you know, a lot of these normal $50 statues tend to be just kind of flat tones, the Predator here has got a lot more shades on his flesh. So when you combine that then with having to do these annoying little fishnets, you know, you can understand why there's going to be some little bits and pieces that are in the wrong spot. But, you know, if you're looking at it from a distance, even like right now if you're watching on camera with this nice wide shot here, you're going to see that's not really a big deal. You're not going to really notice these things unless you're nose to nose with the Predator. And really, would you ever want to get that close to the Predator? You know, and speaking about that body too, we gotta talk about some of the anatomy with this figure. And yeah, anatomy is perfect. There's nothing wrong here with this figure. Everything looks good to me. Everything is in the right place that it should be. Yeah, the Predators are more or less very humanoid kind of characters. I think the only exception about them is their feet. And you can see here that the feet have that weird little claw bit going on to them. So those look really nice. It's got a good balance of weight in the pose. You know, really no complaints here about the stance or the anatomy whatsoever. But besides the fishnets being a little off here and there, which again, I'm not really gonna detract much from, it's like a half point at best. All that work that they put on the skin is a really big, nice bonus, I think, and that really makes it stand out more so. You've got all the metallics as well, which look very good, and also very battle damaged to kind of use, because they're not just like super shiny. They're shiny, but with a little bit of dull kind of wash on top of them to really show that these are used items. They're not just something really shiny that are on display. Like, no, this is a Predator. He's out hunting. He's gonna get dirty. And on that subject of color, you know, as a piece itself, and speaking of color, Predators are not normally a very colorful person, colorful characters. And what they are meant to do when they're hunting especially is to blend into what they're doing here. And I think that in particular, this Predator piece really does blend in well with his surroundings. And that's more of a compliment to the original filmmakers, not so much necessarily to the sculptors here, but they made very good choices to make sure that that original feeling continued on into this statue. And using the colors and the shapes that they chose for this base in particular helped to cement that look of the Predator blending into his background, because you know, you can see his feet here are very much rooted into that base. And he feels like he's part of those roots of that tree. And it's almost as if he's growing from out of that space. So there were some very good aesthetic choices that were made in this piece here, and that leads me to give this Predator here a very, very high rating. You know, I'm gonna give this guy, I want to say a 9 out of 10, maybe an 8.5 at worst, but overall just another really, really, really strong piece. And you know, I can't really say which version will be better, a version without the mask on or with the mask off. You know, I've seen pictures of the mask off, and it's also very good, but I think it's just what kind of version of the Predator that you want. So if you want a masked version, because again, really the only difference between those two will be the head sculpt. If you want the version with the helmet on here, you know, this is a pretty iconic and very affordable version of that Predator to get your hands on. It's one of the larger statues also from the Diamond series. but I think it'll fit in very well in your collection, on your shelf, wherever you're gonna put this guy. It's gonna look good, it's gonna fit nicely. It's got really just a lot of winning all around it. So at the end of the day, yes, I can highly recommend this Predator statue. I'm super happy with it. I think you're gonna be too. You can order this Predator directly from Diamond Select using their website, or you can use our Amazon affiliate links in the description below, which helps us out and costs you nothing extra. If you like this video and want to see more of the things that we do here at Nerd News Today, including action figure reviews and other discussion videos, please consider subscribing to us. And hey, while you're at it, why don't you give this video a thumbs up? And of course, let us know what you think about this Predator in the comments below. Do you think there's anything here that Diamond could have done differently to make it stand out a little bit more or be better in your mind? Tell us what you think. So until next time, I'm Matthew. This has been Nerd News Today. Thanks for watching this video. And if you hear something rustling in the jungle behind you, well, it was nice knowing you. See you guys next time.